So I want to get an agreement. All right. I want to agree because this is all for you. I mean, and if I've got the wrong presentation, I'll redo it. I can do it. But tell me if you'd agree that tonight would be successful for you if one, you gain some insights and tools and even an ability to draft a presentation. And frankly, why bother? Well, the reality is the key to business planning, it's not just the plan. Frankly, it's the process of developing the plan is actually where most of the meat is. Hope you get some insights tonight on good versus great business plans. I'm going to give you some tools that you might be able to use to create your own business plan. I'm going to demonstrate it. I'm going to use a company that I helped start years ago and show you the template that I used to get the funding and do it. I'm going to share some best practices to consider. And anything missing? Or would you agree, if we can accomplish this tonight, it'll be successful to you? What do you think? Is this a good set of objectives? Would this make it successful for you? All right. Thanks, Deborah March Zamora. All right. And let me just quickly share what's in it for me. So at the end, if you didn't like it, don't tell anybody. Or give someone else's name. And just leave the session quietly and graciously. But if you liked it, clap appreciatively and complete a good review. If you loved it, I hope you go wild. Thumbs up, tell your friends, and come to more of my sessions. And that would be awesome. All right, let's get going. So first of all, let's start out with some core principles here. One, it's not a secret. Right? As Bill Gates said when he went to write the plan, he first showed his plan to 1,200 people, and 900 said no, and 300 at least listened. And then only 85 did something about that, and only 35 of that group ended up serious, and only 11 invested and made him a billionaire. What's the implication for you? One, share your business plan as a story. Share it as a story. And the reason it's a story, it sort of paints a picture, a visual picture. And when you tell it as a story, you generally see where the holes are because the story's got to connect, right? It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and it's got to all connect. Step 3 is, as you find those holes, improve the story. And step 4 is do it over again. In other words, most business plans I've been involved in, we just keep circling and circling and circling and circling and constantly improving it to the point where we think we got a pretty good plan, right? So first key, share the story as often as you can. If you share it with 10 people, that's not enough. Share it with a bunch. Second key concept, you don't have to see the whole staircase to take the first step. So what are the implications to you? Initially, a business plan starts out with a best guess. It's a vision of what you're going to accomplish. And then you think of, well, what are the obstacles to that? Then you create vision B. And then you go back and say, what are the obstacles of that? And create vision C. And you keep going through that until you start seeing the staircase going all the way to heaven. But don't worry at the beginning as you're first putting this together. Don't feel like you have to know everything. It's a building process. Third, if plan A doesn't work, there's another 25 letters in the alphabet. Again, implication. Vision requires a plan A, and then plans constantly change. And change doesn't create safe. Because one of the mistakes entrepreneurs make all the time is safe doesn't exist. It's a fallacy. Fake doesn't exist, but so many people seek safe. That's why they don't end up entrepreneurs. All right. Is this making sense so far? Is this helpful so far? So I know to keep going? comments in the would be helpful? Is this helpful? I don't see any typing here. Okay, awesome. All right. Next, plans are nothing. It's the planning process that's everything. So what are the implications to you? The key isn't the plan itself. The key is all the thinking, all the iterations, putting it in as a story that is consistent, right? The constant is always challenging. Plans are not constant. Plans continuously adjust, right? It's a continuous adjustment. Don't just go with the plan and say, that's the plan. Make adjustments as you run into them. By failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. Benjamin Franklin. What are the implications? Best guess is the preparation. Preparation is not having the right answer, because guess what? The right answer doesn't exist. So existence as a business is all about value. And one of the most important things here is number 5, because most entrepreneurs miss this. Value isn't what you're going to do. Value is the differences versus their other options. It's critical. Value isn't what you do. Value is the differences versus their other options. A business that makes nothing but money is a poor business. So the implication for you is avoid focus on just money. Money alone, you'll be a loser. You know why you'll be a loser? Because there's always someone else that you know is making more. You have a business with purpose. It drives a life with purpose. So Marge, you shared in the chat area to expand on that. Help me understand what you would like me to expand on. All right, could you just share with me quickly, what do you want me to expand on, if you can type that in? All right, you want me to expand on slide 11. I'll go back to slide 11. All right, so it talks about failing to prepare, you're preparing to fail. What does that mean? I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs try to race to a business plan, as an example. Oh, I'm sorry, the difference thing. I'm going to get into that a little bit later in more detail, Marge, okay? And if you don't see me do that, holler out again. But I think I'm going to get to that in a major way. And it's one of the most important parts of this entire presentation. So I'm glad you brought it up. I'm glad you're interested in it. And I will definitely expand on it. All right? Is that fair? All right. Unless you're a fortune teller, I don't know, I'm not. Long-term business planning is a fantasy, especially in the entrepreneurial stage, right? Be pragmatic. Dream big. But the key is having milestones along the way. And have your primary objectives, frankly, within reach. I'm going to give you an example. A friend of mine, actually he was a customer, became a friend, became a billionaire. He owned about 250 locations that sold roofing material and windows and doors and all sorts of building products to contractors all over the country. And in fact, he was dominated at the time, Florida. And ended up a good friend of mine. When he sold his company for over $1 billion, he asked me to join the board, and he asked me to come to Africa with him. And I spent 4 years going back and forth to Africa using mostly his money, but because mine was piddly compared to his, but we built orphanages and schools and micro businesses, whatever. I remember sitting down with him one night. I said, Barry, when you started this company, what was your dream? Because Dave, my dream was to have a location that provided excellent service to contractors. I said, okay, what's your next dream? He goes, well, once I had one operation, my next dream was to build two more and be up to three. I said, what about after that? He goes, oh man, Dave, once I had three, I tried to figure out how to double that and get to six. And then I tried to figure out how to get to 12. You see the story here? Dream, but dream each step within reach. Don't try to hit for the grand slam. Things are going to change along the way. This is another really important one. Marge, my guess is like the other one. Write this down and set it aside because it's just about as important as the difference thing. The essence of strategy is choosing what you're not going to do. Fascinating. The essence of strategy is choosing what you're not going to do. Most business plans I see say we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And it reminds me of that guy in New York City in that trench coat selling watches, and he's got every kind of watch you might want. Not really good. The reason you want to know not only what you are going to do, but also what you're not going to do is it actually helps people be more creative. I remember one of my favorite quotes was, some of you may not remember who this was, but Julie Andrews. Anyone remember what movies Julie Andrews was with? There's some people, hopefully, that maybe a little bit closer to my age. Remember Julie Andrews? Sound of Music was a big one. What else? One other big one of my favorites. Mary Poppins. All right. So I was reading about, because I like to read about famous people. What did they learn? I remember one of Mary Poppins, one of Julie Andrews and Victor Victoria. That one was awesome. One of my favorite quotes by Julie Andrews is the boundaries actually help me be more creative. Because if I know where the boundaries are, I can push all the way to the boundaries, but stay safe within it. And sort of the same concept here in a company. Criteria should be not only what you're trying to accomplish, but also what you're not trying to accomplish, because otherwise you get strategy creep. And people keep saying, well, it's close enough. It's sort of what we do. And it's very dangerous. All right. It's not whether you get knocked down. It's whether you get back up. What are the implications? Again, be pragmatic. Dream big. You want to have milestones. What are your goals along the way? Doesn't mean you're always going to achieve them, but have a sense of where you're going and have the objectives within reach. Winners never quit, and quitters never win. I had an uncle in Richmond, Virginia, and I can remember, man, the guy went bankrupt 5 times. I remember my dad saying as a kid, can you believe Uncle Marvin's he's been bankrupt 5 times and he's going to go start another company? Well, the other company was in the early 1960s, and he got the exclusive franchise for the state of Virginia for Carrier air conditioning. He did well. The point is, most of us learn most from our failures, from our mistakes. Think of that as a great education. Frankly, mistakes are some of the best education you can get. I remember reading about the founder of IBM. And they were now big. They grew. They started out a punch clock company and meat slicing company, and they ended up this huge company, as you know, in typewriters, computers, and all sorts of things. And Watson, one of his key people, made a decision that cost the company $10 million. Back then, that was like at least $100 million today. And everybody thought the guy was going to get fired, including him. And he walks into Watson's office, and everyone's sure he's getting fired. And he comes out with a little bit of a smile on his face. And people go back and said, Mr. Watson, we thought for sure you're going to fire him. He cost us $10 million. Mr. Watson said, yeah, but he's a really good business person. It was a best guess. It didn't come through. And he's now one of the best educated employees I got in the whole company. Your mistakes are an investment. Don't beat you up over them. Bounce back. What did you learn from them, and what can you do differently? So the implication for you, swing the darn bat. I've taught over 5,000 MBA students, young in their career. And one of the things that I point out to them is we're wired as individuals to avoid risk. But you can't really avoid risk. We're wired to avoid risk. So in baseball terms, you think about it, every bad hit, every mistake we make, man, we can't forget it. But you know what? Everybody else, they remember the runs you batted in. They remember the runs you batted in. Babe Ruth, famous. He also had more strikeouts than anybody. So swing the darn bat, because the reality is, if you miss the ball, so what? Unlike baseball, you can't strike out. You can have some frustrations, whatever. And if you wait for the perfect pitch, you're probably not going to swing the bat. You'll remember the failures. They're going to remember the runs you batted in. It's a myth that if you build it, they will come. So what's the implication? The implication is build your plan and then ask yourself, why won't it work? And build an army of supporters. Share the story over and over and over. Get as many people as you can talking about you, sharing about you. Communicate with a promise. What's in it for them? No one cares what's in it for you. Most business plans seem to focus on, and this is how it's going to benefit us. No. How is it going to benefit your constituencies? Why will customers buy? What's in it for them? Why will distributors or retailers buy? What's in it for them? Why will suppliers support you? And most importantly, why will employees want to work for you and with you? The promise has to be to them. What's in it for them? If you don't have passion, why do you think they'll believe it? And communicate with purpose. The purpose is about them doing something special, something that their other options can't provide. Because strategy is about your differences. People have other options. They have other places they can work, employees. Distributors and retailers have other products they can put on the shelf and sell. Suppliers sometimes, especially when resources are short, have other vendors, have other customers they can sell to. All these constituencies have choices. Strategy is about focusing on their choices and why you're a better choice. Those are differences. And most business plans don't communicate that way. And communicate the process. Here's how we're going to do it. And I'm going to show you examples in a little bit. So the process puts trust behind the promise and the passion and the purpose. The process then says, and here's how we're going to accomplish it. So let me stop for a second. You're ready to get to work. Is this helpful so far? Anything I can do differently to make this a little better for you? Is it helpful? few comments in the chat section, please, just to write sure. Awesome. I love these comments. I love these comments. Thank you. So we're going to get to work now. All right. So there's no right or wrong way to do a business plan. I'm just going to share with you the way I've done them. And I've written a ton of them. I launched and ran a bunch of businesses for Johnson & Johnson. I built their dental care company. I built their home healthcare company. I built very active there. I built a lot of business plans. I've started over 35 very successful companies. Two of them went, I've led two companies to over $1 billion in sales. So one of them multiple billions. But I use the same process every time. So I want to share the process. It's my approach. There's no right way, but if it fits you, great, or modify it. I build a draft of the story. So think of it like a movie, right? What are they going to visualize? What are they going to hear? And then as I build that story, what didn't make sense in that story? Because when it's like a movie. If the movie doesn't connect together, man, that wasn't a very good movie, right? A movie, when you think about it and you walk away from the movie, I get it. I see why this happened. I see why that happened. It all connected. Think of your business plan the same way. 2, what I do is I start from the back. I draft my exhibits first, and each exhibit tells a piece of the story. It documents the assumptions. And the reason I do the exhibits first is I often find that once I've got the proof, the exhibits, the story in all the individual parts, I can now move them around and reorder them so that the story ends up making more sense. So I don't write the story. I start with the exhibits to prove the story, to share the story. And I try out that story, right? And why? Because when we share a story, when we're teaching, we see the holes. And you want to ask yourself, why else might this not work? As opposed to why will it work? What are the obstacles? Try to get clarity around those issues because they're going to surface. And deal with them now before you get into a lot more detail. Next, time to create your summaries, your tables, your pictures, your testimonials. Now you're developing the ingredients for the recipe. And that's time for what I call bake the cake, right? You mix all these ingredients together, you heat it in the oven, you test it as a total batch, and you serve it. Now, the technique I happen to use, which I don't have time to teach here, but if you're interested, I developed a writing technique. I've used this with over 5,000 MBA students who then took it into the career. So I gave you a link to it. I'll also share with you that if you know anyone in your family that's having one of a few issues, one, they're dyslexic, they have some issues reading. I originally developed the technique for dyslexics, and it's based on a technique that almost every Ivy League school teaches freshmen. It's called the Cornell method. I just took the Cornell method and built on it. And if you do decide to download it and have any questions on it, all right, please let me know and I will help you with that. And someone asked me to put that in the chat box. So let me make sure I see how to do that. And just let me know if that came through. I think I got it. All right. So one is it works for people who have some learning disabilities. And 2, in the universities I've taught at, one of them actually was the #1 rated business school in the country, which is Indiana, University of, that the average grades of the students who did it went up. in every case. So that's 2. 3, some people, just the way their brain works, they are constantly dealing with all this detail, but they have trouble communicating it. For those of you who have trouble pinning down your story and making it concise, this technique will help you. All right? So I pasted the link. Can you not see that? Oh, I see why. Never mind. I didn't taste. Why did it only? Okay. Who can see your message recording? Okay, that's why it didn't come through. How do I make it go to everybody? Everyone. Got it. Sorry. I apologize. I missed that. All right. Please confirm it went through this time. All right. We good? Got it. All right. So I'm going to share an example, and this actually was a business plan that I launched. And I'm going to just take you through it. And this is exactly how I wrote it. And by the way, this happens to be in that writing style that I mentioned and gave you the link. So I started off, I needed a story. So what's a story? So I want an overview. And so the story is, well, what if we went into business of a retail store, but we sell plum gold, but we do it very differently. Everybody sells gold, especially back then, by the design. And I said, well, what if instead we sold it by the ounce, regardless of design? And we said, 2, hey, where would I do that? Well, I didn't have the money to take out big leases on stores and expensive stores. So I said, what if we launched on a weekend and rented just the meeting room and surrounded a city so it was convenient to everybody and advertised centrally in that city? So, for example, go to Baltimore and hit 8 locations around Baltimore, advertise for the entire 8, and now we're convenient to everybody. On the weekends is a special event. I said, well, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do it on TV campaign. We're going to do it mostly on Thursday, Fridays, when people are planning their weekends. And we're going to do it primarily on news shows, because on news shows on TV, people's brain are more engaged. One of the things you might not know, but you'll notice on even political ads, the most effective advertising is actually during news shows, because the brain's engaged as opposed to just sort of being entertained. And it's going to be at multiple high-end suburban locations. And the reason plum gold is American gold is not plum. 14 karat. So 14 karat, when you hear 14 karat, it means 14 parts per 24. Well, Americans, it's got to be at least 13.6. But in Italy, plum golds, it has to be over 14. So we said, okay, that'll give us a slight selling story. Give it a little bit more. The next thing I do is, okay, to be in the game, what's expected if you're selling gold? What's acceptable? I said, well, where? You got to be local, but most of it was large-scale chains. But what I noticed about the industry was people are skeptical. Why did this design cost this? Why did this bracelet cost this? Am I getting ripped off? Can I trust these people? They're blind. They're wondering, is this really worth it? And it seems like they're always on sale. So the discounts even meaningful. I mean, the jewelry business is weird. I said, for most people, their experience is, geez, I bought it, but did I overpay? Did I get ripped off? There's a lot of question that goes on. It's uncomfortable. Does that make sense so far? Can you see how I'm painting a story? So then I said, okay, so what's the action? Why should they respond to this? Well, it's this weekend only at these locations. I said, okay, I need an elevator pitch. What are we going to share with them as the basic concept? Here's what I came up with. Do you love fine jewelry, but it's so expensive? You feel pressured and pushy salespeople following you everywhere as you look around the store? Have you ever worried if the jewelry purchase is quality or is junk? And you get ripped off. Well, this weekend, United Financial Services is hosting a gold jewelry opportunity of a lifetime. We're bringing in over 50,000 hand-selected Italian gold jewelry representing the finest gold and the most beautiful and exquisite designs in the world. We'll put your jewelry selection on a medical scale, and you just pay our wholesale value of the gold weight, regardless of the complexity of design. We hide nothing. It's all transparent. This weekend only, Saturday and Sunday from noon to 7 at these locations. That was our story. So then we said, okay, and then stepped back and said, well, how does it affect each constituency? Because each one, what's in it for them? So for the consumer, what's in it for them? One, they expect pricing to be blind. They expect pushy salespeople. They expect fake discounts. What's acceptable? It's affordable, it's beautiful, it's quality, and there's a variety of choices. What's the experience risk? Did I get value? Do I have good taste? Is it quality? And unexpected, is being able to trust. This is different. It's transparent pricing, sold by the ounce, not the design. Cashiers, not salespeople, right? It's a wholesale extravaganza. Exceptional quality. It's Italian gold jewelry. It's the best in the world. And special and convenient. This weekend only at these locations. What's in it for employees? Well, they expect working in a jewelry store, it's going to be boring when it's slow. You're going to fight for customers for commissions. It's awful. What's acceptable? Well, they want at least a good income, enjoy coming to work, and benefits. What's unexpected? Substantial potential income and a fast-paced, fun environment with happy clients and a great culture. A chance to travel, it's paid for. What about the suppliers? What do they expect? They expect you're negotiating price on every single thing you buy. And trouble collecting the money because inventories turn slowly in the jewelry business. What's acceptable? Man, if you can pay within 30 days, 2% discount paid within 10 days and large volume at a fair price, awesome. What's their experience risk? They have a lot of customers that go bankrupt. What's unexpected? A healthy customer with tremendous sales, with a simple process and low risk. And what about the investors? They expect high capital investments, low inventory turnover, and fun and fashion if they're going to be in the jewelry business. What's acceptable? Well, they'd like a return in their investment of at least 20%, moderate risk, and a RONA, which I'll explain later, of at least 15%. What would be unexpected? Low capital, because we don't have stores. High inventory turnover, because we've got major events. And a great return on investment. Is this making sense? And Eric, I hope, have I sped up enough? We doing good? Just want to make sure. All right. So what's the next step? Next step is best guess on the math. And I want you to notice how I go about the math, right? I want to see if the story can work as a first cut. So my first step was, what's it going to cost to advertise that show? I said, okay, about 50 grand to have enough television on a Thursday and Friday to make it worthwhile. Because in television, if people don't see an ad at least 6 times and ideally 10, it's not very effective. I said, okay, now if I set up shows in like a Baltimore or a Boston or wherever, what's my investment? Well, if I put 6 shows, the cost of locations renting about $1,000 a piece. I need 3 employees at each one. I figured my cost of the employee, their base salary and expenses, $2,000 each. I get a total of $12,000. So my total cost per show is $62,000. Then I said, okay, I got these people coming in. On average, given this kind of product, what do I think the average person is going to spend? Best guess was $125. What's my gross margin? 60% cost of goods sold, 40% margin, $125,000. All right, I got that. And I said, and how many of these events could I do a year? off a team. I said, I think we can do 20. So I know I have gross profit of $1,260,000. Well, I said, okay, now I got to have a company to run all this. Is this going to work? So I said, well, the facilities, going to have to rent a facility, offices, or whatever. That's going to be 120 grand. Utilities about 25 grand. And I did it all out, and my expenses per year, right, came out to $1,700,000. I got my fixed assets, my operation. Notice I'm building a story, just making sure. Does this all fit? Next step. Well, I created a balance sheet. How much cash am I going to need? How much inventory am I going to carry? What about that equipment I just talked about? And build the income statement. The income statement is off of just what I did before. It's sales, 2.5 million, cost of goods sold, $1,240,000, gross profit. I got my overhead expenses. That gives me an earnings before interest and taxes, i.e. operating income of $253,000. I took out some loans. I got provision for taxes. I'm going to make 152. My question is, well, how good is that? So I said, I'm going to do a return on net assets. Net assets is the investment in a company. It's a combination of debt and shareholder equity, right? It's debt and shareholder equity because they're the real investors. So if I look over the left, I've got 985,000 in fixed total assets, but 100 of it is short-term payable. So my investment is the long-term debt, and I know I was going to have to pay 6%, and the equity people were going to put in 250,000, right? And that's how I came up with it. And that gave me a 17% return on the money that we were investing in general, but on the shareholder portion, just the shareholder portion, 61% return to the shareholders. I'm going, man, this is now starting to look pretty cool. I said, okay, how are we going to get there? So I put together the milestones. What do we need to do, and when does it happen? And I just listed them out, and now I had a plan. And then I had to say, okay, I got all this. Now I got to get more detailed to make sure it's going to work. I got to do a cash flow. So for each of these milestones, like the rent, I got to start off right away. But some stuff doesn't start till later. I don't need to build the displays quite yet. I can put that off. So I start looking at this to see at what point will the cash carry me. And now I know, and I can go to a bank, I could go to investors, I can go to the SBA and say, hey, this is thought out. This is just timing of these things. So it is. I'm going to take a break. And here's some questions you might ask for your story. What's the likelihood that it's going to succeed overall? What do you like and dislike about the customer value proposition, right? First, focus on that constituency. What do you like and dislike about the difference on what we're going to do versus the industry? And Marge, that goes back to, see, it's our differences. And if you notice the way I even built the plan, all right, think about what I did. What do they expect? What's minimal for them? What is the experience they normally have? And how can we be different? Right? And you ask the question, well, how we know the numbers? Best guess. Knowing your business. Just best guess. That's all it is. Business is best guess. I see these people spend hours and hours and hours on Excel spreadsheets and whatever. I'm going, they're wasting the time because it's not going to make a difference. All business is best guess. Most people haven't figured that out. All right? So now we got to create the plan so we can bring it to other people. And here's a guide on how to do it. One, they want to see a mission. Why? You're just going to say, is there a worthwhile purpose here? Two, the journey. Think of it like Martin Luther King. I have a dream. Three, what are your value systems? How do we behave? What's acceptable behavior in the company, what's not? Goals, the objectives. And to be good goals, they're going to be smart, specific. What is it you're going to accomplish? How it's going to be measured? What you're going to attain? It's important. And when will it be done? Because if it's not smart, any result is success. And we know that's not true. And then a plan. A plan is pretty simple. There's only 5 things that cause anything good or bad to happen in the business. And make sure you've thought through each of the 5 and how they interact with each other. Who did it? What happened? When it happened? Where it happened? And how it happened. And then the why. The why helps you prioritize all that. What's really important, what's not. Because we get caught in the details. And I call the details happen to be accurate, but they're vampires. They're sucking the blood away from the important stuff. But if you just step back and say, in any business, there's only 5 causes of anything good or bad to happen. Look at them. What, who, what, when, where, and how. Then ask yourself the why, which helps you prioritize their importance. Take out the vampires that are sucking the blood out and focus on the pot of gold. You want to add some quick facts, a little bit about the competition, and that's how are they threats and where are the opportunities to beat them? Think about the team, right? What are the strengths of the team you put together? And frankly, where you're not world class, but good enough. Write down, here are the biggest challenges. People know that any business has risks, so put down, here are challenges, here's perspective. Here are the risks we're aware of, and here are action plans. And what we're looking for is triggers that means we'd have to pivot. And any important details, and the details here, I mean, were there any really important assumptions that were in your plan? One of my, I'll call it my magic recipe, my secret sauce, is everything in business, it still comes down to, do they trust you? Employees, customers, investors, whatever. And I said, okay, when I tell people stuff, it's less trusted than when I share it. So I came up with an acronym. And the acronym is a guide to me that says, if it's important information, instead of telling them the information, can I put it in a statistic? Or can I put it in a testimonial, what someone else said? Or can I rely on an expert, what an expert said, or an analogy, or demonstrate it, or something they said based on a question I asked? So, for example, a statistic. 9 out of 10 hospitals use Tylenol when they're worried about pain relief. Why would you use anybody else? Testimonial. My God, I was 350 pounds. I started eating Subway every day, every meal, and look at me now. Well, then he got in trouble later, but we all know that. Expert opinion. The American Dental Association has certified the Crest toothpaste analogy. It's sort of like these, you hate cleaning the toilet. It's like these scrubbing bubbles that are cleaning it for you. Demonstration. The first blade pulls the whiskers back. The second blade starts cutting. The third, I can't believe we're up to 5 in demonstrations. Why? Because when you share things, you want to share what they currently expect, i.e. the problems. You want to share what they don't expect. That's what makes you special, the difference. You want to promise that you can deliver what they expected and the unexpected. It's the unexpected that's the real value. And then lower their actions by giving them a guarantee or a free trial, whatever. That's how you build a story. And then you bake the cake. Now we're going to take the exhibits and our math and our financials and the whole back of this, and we've now organized it. Now we're going to bake the cake. Starts off with an executive summary, but do it last. What's an executive summary do? Your attitude. It's about them. It's not about you. Keep it simple, stupid. All right? The core story is customer focus first. What's the compelling reason? Why are you a better choice than their other options? And it's got to be emotional. Probably not going to work. 2, The other core constituencies, they're focused on what's in it for me. Why are you a better choice or options for employees or for distributors or investors? Make things smart. Show the milestones that are specific of things you're going to accomplish and when they're going to be. Specifically, we're going to achieve these things, right? So in the analysis I said before, specifically, we're going to spend $50,000 on a show. We're going to have 3 people at each show. We're going to have 6 surrounding. We're going to do this much. Put it down. What are the key assumptions? Right? What are the key assumptions? And their best guess. But show your best guess. The exhibits just prove it all. And the exhibits tie specifically to the story. On top of the exhibits, I often have an addendum. An addendum to some people is a lot more detail. Some people love detail. Some people hate detail. If I'm dealing with engineers, I definitely have an addendum. All right? And it's just more details that are not critical to the story. Like, here's my organization chart. Is that critical to the story? I've only got a limited time? No, but put it there. 2, detailed comparisons versus other options. That includes what I called before the vampires, but it's complete detail. And God, here's some examples of ads and promotions. So these are details that help support the whole story. So Donald asks, I may have missed you saying something about it, but I was wondering, will the presentation be available for us to download and go over the future? Yes and yes. So what I do, Donald, is 1, some people just want this stuff right away. And if you send me an email at the end, I'll have it on, it's actually at the bottom of this slide. If you send me an email, as soon as it comes out, I'll send it to you. So that's 1. 2, if you also want about 10 other videos I've done on various different subjects, let me know in your email and I'll send it to you. That's 2. 3, the Mid-Florida chapter, Barry, who's awesome, runs this whole thing for us, he'll have it posted within a couple of days, right? So send me an email, so I won't get to it. Tell me, I want the recording and I want the PowerPoint. That's part 1. Part 2, if you also want some other presentations, do that. And 3 is, I only ask you that if you do that, give me some feedback on what you like, what you didn't like, and any questions you have. All right, is that fair? And Donald, did that answer the question? All right. The link provided in the chat was only one thing. That was, Zamara, that was just the writing technique. Actually, it's not part of the collection I said, so it's totally different. And thanks for asking. All right. So 10 insights, sort of a summary. Increase success. 1, it's about them, not you. 2, genius is making the complex simple. Most people do the reverse. 3, decisions are emotional. They're opinions. But people remember just a few major ones. So don't show up and throw up. Pick the 3 most important things you hope they remember that ties to what's in it for them. And keep reinforcing those. 4, facts support emotional decisions, but people do not generally buy on facts. They help drive the decision. Value is witnessed in the differences versus other options. The more you keep things visual, even in writing, in presentations, in what you share, the story, the more visual it is, the more they're going to understand it. Charts, tables, and pictures, they eliminate multiple paragraphs. A simple chart can say like an entire chapter. If reading takes work, they're going to avoid it, which is, again, one of the reasons for that writing technique, because it takes 5 pages and brings it down to 1. Structure of reading. This is a little different than you might have expected. People don't read a document, generally sit down and read it. They scan it to say, hey, is this important enough for me to spend time on? If it is, then two, they start going through it to see if it's logical and easy. If it's not, they put it aside and don't get back to it. If it's logical and easy, a great document then makes it easy to find the information a week later, a month later that they were looking for, and fast. Again, it's one of the reasons I teach the writing technique if you want to use it. Don't use jargon. It's confusion. It's confusing. Tell a story. Every story should talk to, and not because they're not smart, but try to write everything you do as if it's fifth grade level. Hey, I was in charge of Johnson & Johnson sutures. I was in charge of, another time, heart monitors. I'm dealing with surgeons. I'm dealing with some of the smartest people. I still write it at a fifth grade level. Not to insult them, just to make it easy. See in your story what are vampires. It's not that they're not accurate. It's not that they're not somewhat important, but it's pulling the major message away. And stick those back in the addendum. And eliminate trying to be ragu spaghetti sauce. It's all in there. No, it's not all in there. It's going to confuse them. So some references. I've got some links to some presentations I've done. One is on elevator pitch. One is building the brand. Another one I love is Decision Tree. Oh my God, that has helped so many people, so many ways, make complex decisions, make them simple. I got one on finance that's very different than the way most people think of it. And I've got one on strategy and planning. I got others too. The point is, if you want these key are the links here, and I'll be giving the presentation, but if you want them all, just let me know. And I won't be able to take the email from this. Just make sure you send the email to me. All right? So Tangela, just send it to me, bottom left screen. You can see where to send it. All right. Well, you agreed today would be successful for you if you gain some insights and the tools to draft a plan. You know, why bother? What are the benefits of the document? Some insights, good versus great. Some tools, some templates for doing it, ability to demonstrate using these components, and sharing some best practices. You said it'd be successful. And for me, if you didn't like it, don't tell anybody. But if you liked it, clap. But if you loved it, go wild, share it on here, tell your friends, give it a great review, and come to a lot more my workshop. All right? My email is david.harrison@scorevolunteer.org. All right, Eric, that was very kind, and I appreciate it. And we finished right on time. If I appreciate your being here. We had close to 80 people. That is just awesome. It makes it fun for me. And at the end of the day, I'm at that point in life where I believe a few things. If you made a lot of money and you think it's all because of your hard work, that's crap. There's a lot of luck involved. Two, what better privilege in life than to be able to affect another life in their journey? And you've given me that privilege to do that. And I sincerely appreciate it. I'm going to type in and by the way, I am dyslexic, so you probably saw some typos in the presentation, and I'll just say I apologize, but it's part of the package. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for all the really kind words. And I appreciate it. If I can help you in any way, feel free to contact me. Good night, everybody.